Hey there everyone, Seb here with another vlog thingy. Now in my previous vlog I mentioned that I had some issues with getting my Commodore 64 to work, and well, eventually I did get it to work, but my goodness, it was a journey, and I figured it'd be fun to just have a little video like this to go about that journey and see what I encountered for issues and how I kind of found ways to go around it, which mostly was just buying new stuff because I'm not that technical. But yeah, it might be interesting for others who run into similar issues, and also I might find some help from you guys, because there are some things that I still don't really understand why it didn't work. But maybe you do, so you might be able to help me further in that regard. The important thing is, in the end, it works. And that's great, because that also means that I can start streaming, and I actually, as a little announcement, I want to start streaming this Sunday, probably at the end of the afternoon or perhaps beginning of the evening, and I am in Central European time, and there I will just, go through my collection, not all at once because it's way too much, just a couple of hours maybe, and just load the tapes, see if they still work, play the game a bit, have a fun time, also hopefully chatting with those who happen to drop in, because for those who are familiar with tape loading, there's a lot of loading times. Anyway, that's for Sunday, because before I got to that point there was a lot of frustration, let me tell you. First off, let me tell you a bit about the Commodore 64 and my history with it, because that's quite an old system, isn't it? Like all of the old micro computers, they've been around for ages, and I think the Commodore 64, if I remember correctly, came to market in 1982, which is a year before I actually came to market. And I don't actually know when my parents got one. I'm fairly sure it's 84 or 85, but I'm not sure. But yeah, I've pretty much known this thing all my life, so I'm very nostalgic for it. I'm pretty much an end user. I just use it for games. My parents just use it for games. As such, I'm no expert. I don't know all the ins and outs. I did try my, as a child, I used the books and typed in some basic programs, but don't expect any Commodore wizardry from me, because that's just not something that I ever really got good at. But I did know how to pop in a cassette and load it, and yeah, we mainly had cassettes. It's something in Europe where we basically had a lot of cassettes in general, but also my parents weren't rich, so they really had to look out for a lot of bargains, so we got a lot of bargain cassettes in that regard as well, and the discs tended to be more expensive, so that will probably also reflect in the games I have. A lot of like the budget lines of the games or the packs. Actually I'll show you a couple. Some people now who grew up never even saw the wonderful world of tapes, and they came in these boxes, and they look like this, and this is basically the way you mainly played your music back in the 80s, and it was cool. Well, it has its drawbacks, but it's not as bad as many people make it out to be these days. Like, it's not like, oh, you put it in the machine and it'll eat it up. Nah, that like if I had to fix a tape like 4 times or something in all my life, then that's a lot. And I played a lot of tapes, because I also had a lot of audiobooks on tape, which came in these big yellow boxes. But I digress. We are talking about the Commodore 64 here, and they came on tapes like this. I initially started this because I need to, make space. You only have so much space, so I figured, these tape things, they probably won't last as long as many as, like, for example, a CD or a cartridge. But from what I've seen so far, I'm actually quite surprised how well they kind of held up. So the more I play with them and just hold them in my hands, the more I'm actually hesitant to actually get rid of them. But we'll see about that. We're just gonna have a fun time regardless. Anyway, this is also a budget line racket. I'm not actually sure from which software house this came. But yeah, originally there was, you can kind of compare this to like the greatest hits, or in Europe the platinum games for PlayStation, you know, where software houses had these budget lines where they re-released their bigger titles in a more cheaper form, so more people could enjoy them. And these were $2 or so. And yeah, I keep wanting to say Zaxxon that this game is, but no, this is actually Zenxian. Zenxian, kind of odd name. And I actually don't remember much about this game, so we'll have to test it out. But you know, it can be fun. This was actually the game that I tried to load in the first time, and it actually it was most successful. So you know, cool. Other games didn't work, so it's kind of surprising, out of the hundreds of games that I have, that I have to pick out the one that actually seems to be most tolerant. It's quite surprising. There were also some bigger boxes, like you had these cassettes. Sometimes they had two, and yeah, this is Super Hang-On, which is an awesome game in the arcade. This game is not so good. I do remember this one and being a bit disappointed with it, let's just but yeah, sometimes these things had two tapes, like you can fit in two, but you know, Super Hang-On only has the one. I do think this game actually does have some really neat SID tunes, so you know, there's at least some good in this game, but the actual game, not so good, but we'll check it out. And also a lot of budget line games came in these bigger boxes, like the big boxes, and you know, it's basically a box of Konami games. I don't think Konami actually developed for Commodore themselves. They, you know, sourced it out. They did develop for MSX, which is cool. It's another cool system that, you know, was not common here, but also because Philips had some MSX systems. Also, there was a presence here. It wasn't like many people often say Japan exclusive. Not the case. But anyway, I digress again. So you know, there's a lot of these kind of boxes as well, where you have multiple games inside one box. This has 10 Konami games, and some of these are pretty good, honestly. And there's also, you know, there were also some more expensive boxes like this. Microprose had these this cool line of games. Most of them were simulation games, and there were some really awesome games like these. And the cool thing about these boxes is that like, you have the cassette, but they also came with the disc. If I can actually get the freaking box open. There we go. So you got the tape. Oh my goodness, the smell. You know that whiff of old attic smell. Anyway, you got these. You got the cassette. They also always came with a really nice glossy manual. Well, it's not actually glossy, only the outside is. But yeah, very thorough manuals. It's, you know, it's something that I really miss in modern gaming, the manuals, man. But also, for if you did have a disk drive, the floppy disk. And yeah, this is basically why they were called floppies back then. Although there were floppier floppies, if you get my drift. So, you know, these packs were really cool. We did have a disk drive, by the way, but we had very few games that actually came on disk. But one floppy I do remember we having, and actually was one of my favorite games, and we should find it eventually, was Pyramid Adventurers, I think it was called, which was a pretty awesome game. Anyway, yeah, those are basically some of the type of boxes that we will go through as we go testing. But yeah, it took me a while to actually get them to load reliably, unfortunately. And why is that? Well, I have as many of you nowadays, a Mister, which is an awesome piece of hardware. And it has an amazing Commodore 64 core as well. And I do have the small add-on for an audio input. So I figured, that's awesome. I can test my tapes. I just connect a recorder on it and off we go. Well, no you don't. Or at least I didn't. I know some people have had luck with that, but I so far haven't been able to make it work reliably, unfortunately. I don't have this tape recorder, but I started out with a tape recorder which many Brits will no doubtably recognize. I'll put a picture up for having connected to their ZX Spectrum. Awesome little tape deck, and it seemed to connect okay to the Mister. Got a good signal through and it looked to do okay, but it had an issue. And that had to do with the audio playback. If you actually played back the audio, you would notice, or at least I noticed pretty quickly, like, okay, something's off. The playback wasn't consistent. It would just speed up and slow down, and it just gave this kind of wobbly sound, which is no good if your system relies on, reading signals. I asked my father to replace the belt. Because I figured it might be the issue. Old belt was fine, which was surprising. So that wasn't the issue, but a new belt, didn't improve anything. It was the same. We greased the little motor. That didn't work, but if you actually fast forward, if you press it, it doesn't work. If you press play, it works. If you press fast forward during play, so you get a preview, but it does fast forward. It does fast forward. So something is still wrong in the motor, I think, and I've given to my father to think with and try and figure it out. But who knows? I don't know what's going on with it. It's unfortunate, it didn't work. So I figured, I'm just gonna get a new tape deck. Which I did, and I found this one, which looked very interesting to me. I had never seen this one before, and tried to play a tape on it, and it sounded beautifully. So I connected it to the Mister, and it didn't work. The tape deck I had before, it didn't actually require a mono cable, and even though I'm pretty sure this only outputs in mono, the stereo cable would not work. For the other tape deck, it didn't really matter. But this one would only work with a mono cable, which I figured was a bit odd. Well, whatever. And it kinda, sorta read on the Commodore core, but it never got to a point where it could actually load a game. Like sometimes it would find the name of the game, and that was basically the best you could hope for. There is a little test utility in the Mister. I will see if I can bring that up on screen as well. And the signal of this tape deck actually was all the way to the right of the screen, and I am not sure what's causing that exactly. So if anyone has any idea what might be causing that, then I'd be very happy to learn that and perhaps get it to run anyway. So that didn't work, and I figured, let's first out test if the tape deck is good, and just see if it works or if it's actually something in the connection. So I found a tape here, which is the back is missing. It's a little like a Joust kind of clone. Return of the Space Warrior, very descriptive. This tape, if you listen to it, it is very fuzzy, so it's rather low quality. And if I figured if I can make this work, it's a pretty good test case. So put it in the tape deck, connected my tape deck to the computer, and I made a tab file of the tape, and I played that, loaded that into an emulator, and worked fine. So okay, the recorder can at least make a file that is understandable for an emulator. Now emulators are kind of tolerant, so you know, it's not the best case scenario, so I figured, okay, let's play the audio that I recorded through my computer into the Mister, and guess what, worked perfectly fine. So I figured, okay, let's try something else. I tried to connect a audio interface in between them, the tape deck and the Mister, and that did improve it somewhat, because this was actually where I got this game to load on the Mister. So as I said, it was the first one that actually I got to load on the Mister. But nothing else. No other game would work. So you know, that it just was a dead end. So I figured, you know, even though I figured the tape deck was good, something had to be up that it didn't work. So I figured, you know, let's go to the old saviors and get the help of the good old Philips. It's a big one. My goodness, it's also kind of hefty. But yeah, this is also a very cool player. It's not as special as the other one, but it works fine with computer decks. An easy way to figure out if a tape deck works great with computers is just like if it has these three connectors, then you're good most of the time. And also, you know, they tend to tell you that it's good for a computer. And if you're wondering, like, you've got the ear is basically your output. Mono, mic is microphone for if you want to, you know, load or save your program that you typed yourself to a tape. Then you need to actually have an input, and there is also a RAM, which is a connector for remote. Because most computers, they can send out a signal to a cassette deck. Okay, well, pause here because we need input from the user and only continue after they've done that. The Mister can't actually do that, so that's also something that I learned the hard way. But anyway, that recorder got the exact same results as this one. So another bust, unfortunately, and I'm not sure why. I do have another Philips cassette deck, which is pretty cool, but that one has the old cheesy gears, so you know, that one is also in the hands of my father to put in some new gears eventually. That one was actually for the MSX systems, but you know, it should work on any thing there you can actually connect it to. So I figured, you know, the Mister, it's not gonna work apparently. I don't know how to get it to work. So we go to the old Commodore 64, and this is, I think, my uncle's, not my own, because I got my own, connected it, didn't work. Let me think, what was the first thing I ran into with that one? Oh yeah, it just didn't work. It just gave no signal at all. Even though the only thing that worked was the LED. So something was fried. And I don't know why, because I'm pretty sure I put it away in a working condition all that, what was it, 25 years ago. So why it doesn't work now, I don't know, you know. It was working fine 25 years ago, damn it. But yeah, my father did open it up, and yeah, as expected, the fuse has blown, and you know, we still need to test it out, and hopefully not much else was blown out, but usually once the fuse goes, some other chips get fried as well, but we'll see about that. But yeah, I luckily had another one which I could find, and you know, it's not easy for me to find actual stuff in the pile of boxes that I have. I'm pretty sure this was my uncle's, although I'm not entirely sure, but that's because I'm pretty sure that one of the letters was actually missing, and maybe we had fixed this at some point. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, that was because my uncle, he played games as well. But the Commodore 64 didn't always agree with his skills, and my uncle tended to not agree with game over screens. So, you know, there was something the neighbors could enjoy now and then, and the thing got abused, let's just put it lightly. So, you know, it had a key missing, I'm pretty sure, but perhaps we fix it, or perhaps this is one that I picked up later, I don't know. But anyway, I got this one, put it in, connected it. Also, I was smart enough to actually check the power supply to see if that didn't blow up the first one, and that one was actually working correctly. Got the cassette deck. Cassette deck didn't work. Bloody hell. So another disappointment with the tape deck, and I don't know what was wrong with it, because the tape deck, it seemed to work still, but games, it would find it would say the right name of the game, and then you would load it, and it would crash somewhere during the loading, sometimes right away, sometimes it did a bit of loading, but yeah, it looked almost like the Mister, like the real thing emulating the well, it's not an emulator, but you know what I mean. It was kind of surreal, and I didn't really know what was up. So in hindsight, I think what might have happened is that the tape deck actually got fried as the Commodore got fried, but I'm not entirely sure. But I figured, you know, I need to figure out if the tape deck was bust. So that brings us back to this one, because I told you, like, this is really one that I really figured was an awesome piece of kit. And why is that? Well, that's because this, my friends, is a tape deck that you can actually connect to all of your computers. Because if you look at the Commodores, like most of those older systems have these proprietary connectors, which is very annoying because you cannot use another tape deck. Well, this guy, however, can, and I will show you. And this is just a sidetrack because of course it didn't help me. But yeah, you can connect this tape deck to this piece, and this you can connect to your system of choice, because they actually give you a couple of connectors to connect it to the Atari and to the Commodore. So that's really awesome, and that was really what interested me about this tape deck as I found it to begin with, because I never actually saw that, like this thing that just thinks about these extra connectors. I never saw that, and just really cool. So I figured, you know, I can try that. And the thing runs on batteries, I thought. Well, there I went wrong, because it does run on batteries, but however, as soon as you connect this bloody thing, it doesn't. This thing needs power. And unfortunately, it is an American system, so yeah, I can't connect this, and even if I do, I will immediately blow it up. So I will need a converter for that, but you know, converters, I don't know if I want to go through that little trouble either. I figured, you know, we'll just get another one of those. Why not? So I got a new one, and this one is the new one actually, and it looks, well, it's not new of course, but I think it was actually old new stock, and the box looks pretty beat up, but this thing itself, it looks in excellent condition, and it works. It works absolutely great. So I can finally load my games. I even found my... where is it? Where did I put it? Ah, here we are. I even found the reset button for the Commodore 64. I think this was my old one, not actually sure. Of course this didn't work, because why would it? but a good thorough cleaning and you know, the inside, the outside did make this work again, thankfully. And then the final hurdle was that the SID, I didn't hear no music. I'm like, but you can't play Commodore and not hear any music, man. That's just wrong. Luckily, that was just a setting in my video or the capture card where I just had to reset it. So sometimes things aren't as hard as they seem. But yeah, you can imagine, like, every time you run into something new, you're like, ah, man, what now? What's wrong? I really, you know, so I didn't hear the music. I was, damn it, now the SID chip is bust too, but luckily not the case. So, finally, I can play my games, and we will do this starting this Sunday, and I will try to make this kind of regularly, maybe once a week. I don't know. Also, I don't know how I can actually, if I will actually enjoy live streaming, and if so, if I can even do it. I just don't know. You know, it's the first for me. I never tried it. It's fun to try. I hope people will enjoy it as well, and you know, just you know, a fun way to interact, I find. Also, in that regard, I do have my old joystick here, which I played quite a lot on, so it's not in the best of states, but you know, it still works. However, I don't think I will actually play with this one because as authentic as it feels, it's not that great on camera, is it? But luckily, like, the Commodore 64 uses this, and for those most retro enthusiasts, they will recognize it because you can also connect a standard Sega Genesis controller on that. So that's probably what I'll be using. I also have a more silent joystick, but it's one of those mushy ones, which I don't know, I just don't like the feel of those things. And you know, playing a Commodore with a joypad doesn't really feel right either, but that's just no good, man. That's just too loud. But you know, if I play myself on the Commodore 64, it is something that, you know, you kinda want there. It's kind of the authentic feel, but we'll do without, just to make it more pleasant. So anyway, hope you guys might drop in sometimes to actually explore the library of games of the Commodore 64 in real time. For now, at least, thank you very much for watching once more, and yeah, hope you're having a great day. And until next time, take care. Bye bye for now. De mazzel.